Good afternoon, Oakwood Harbor residents and prospective owners. Today's meeting was very interesting. All I can say is wow, like I posted onto the board. But as promised, try and give you a little commentary on that. And let me first start off by saying, as a sort of a disclaimer, everything I heard myself. But on the other hand, the audio was quite bad. They didn't have the normal camera hooked up, and our secretary was using hers on her laptop. So it was difficult to hear a lot. A lot was very clear. It just depended on where the camera was pointed at the time. So anyways, I encourage you that if any of this information doesn't seem right or you want to know more about it, to contact one of the trustees and speak with them, or you can wait until the minutes of the meeting have been released, and obviously that'll give you a little more insight. It won't give you insight to the conversation, but it will give you insight to what was passed and what was just talked about and put off till the next meeting. So on the top of the list, David Thompson resigned as president. He stated that he was tired of being attacked and so on and so forth, but that's another entirely different subject. Ted Leach took his place as president, was voted in by the board, and Beverly Dunham was voted in as vice president. I don't see these changes as bad, but on the other hand, it obviously makes you wonder a little bit about what's going on. The owners' meeting was set up tentatively for April 15th of this year, and there was some talk about having an inside-outside social distancing and so on and so forth. Renee was very active to have this meeting take place, as well as having it take place outdoors. This way here people could space out properly and everybody could feel a little bit more comfortable being outdoors as opposed to being indoors. However, just so you know, the notice when they discussed it, based on this meeting, was a lot of talk about not enough money coming in and more going out than they could afford. So in the interest of saving money, and this is per covenant, the only thing they're required to do on an owner's meeting is to post it in the office and to post it in the newspaper. So I will obviously keep you all updated, but you do need to know ahead of time and make plans to try and be there at the owner's meeting if your voice will be heard, or if you want to vote. They did mention something about a proxy vote. David said, nah, that's not true. Per covenants, a proxy vote is completely legitimate. The only thing that I would caution you with is that if you are going to vote on something and you have someone as your proxy vote, then you send them a notarized document stating that they are the person that's voting on your behalf in your absence. Also, if you do this, make sure that it's done well in advance, because again, this is tentatively set for the 15th of April. That could change. I'm not really sure what they're going to do at this point, and I will keep you up to date on that. They did rescind the original order from the previous board that included the building of a new dump site on the north side. Apparently the DED perk check came back and it wasn't enough for the amount of water that we put into the system. So they had recommended that they go to an aerobic system, which is a very costly system. It injects air into the system and helps to digest a little bit better. But anyways, bottom line is that I can agree with some of that, that the cost would be a great deal, and there are a lot of things that need to be fixed before that. The main dump station on the south side has been keeping up, although it needs to be pumped often, but it is an unnecessary expenditure at this point. But again, it was rescinded, so you should know that. There was a discrepancy in the bookkeeping that they discussed, and Sherry mentioned that she'll have more facts on the next meeting because she's still working hard on trying to figure out where the problem is. As I recall from the last meeting, there was approximately $51,000 in the account, and as of today, there's approximately $41,000 in the account. So obviously there's a big discrepancy there. And again, these numbers, you need to verify them yourself, because this is just what I have heard over the Zoom meeting, and the audio was lousy. But this is not the first instance. If you've watched any of my other videos, this is not the first instance of discrepancies. And yet normally when they're talking about discrepancies, there's missing paperwork, missing receipts. So I'm going to just expand a little bit on my own opinion is that this is probably based on poor bookkeeping. The way that the bookkeeping is required is that when an expenditure is made, the receipt needs to be received and logged by either the president, vice president, or secretary shortly after the purchase has been made. I think the problem, and again, this is just my opinion, but I think the problem is that we have officers on this board that don't actually live on the property. So if there's only 3 people that can sign off on these receipts and collect these receipts and log them, then it severely hampers the process if they're not available. So again, this is just my own input on this and is not written in stone, but it is clearly a good reason as to why I have been stressing the point that an oversight committee needs to be formed and watch over the bookwork and see what's coming in and what's going out, verify. And I know this is going to tick a few people off, but I really don't care because I have the proof. I made a video of our whole street that was supposed to be covered in 14 loads of gravel. And I made that video the day after I was accused of being blind because it's right in front of my property and there was no 14 loads of gravel. Anyways, long story short is there's a lot of discrepancies, and an oversight committee does need to be formed in order to watch over the day-to-day expenses to see where this money is going. The office hours have been reduced. They will from now on be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Now that is up in the air and flexible. What they're going to try to do is accommodate Deanna and also to make sure that she's there for business during the week and business during the weekend, so that everybody has an opportunity to come to the office and get things done, and also to shut down the heat for the heat or air conditioning for 3 days of the week in order to conserve money. They have canceled Zoom, so I don't think the next meeting will be on Zoom. I guess I'll have to go back to showing up in person, and anybody else who's interested in knowing what's going on needs to do that as well. The garbage will be eliminated altogether on or about March 20th. Again, this goes on or about because they're not sure how the billing cycle works, but they wanted to give plenty of notice, although their idea of a notice is they're going to post a sign. They're not going to tell you about it. They're not going to send you a mail, a letter. It's already been emphasized by Mr. Thompson that he thinks that social media should just go away because telling people that their packages are in the office and that the water is out doesn't seem to be high on his priority list compared to the amount of negative reviews that he's getting. And again, this is my opinion, but this is what I heard Mr. Thompson say. They are going to eliminate laundry service altogether. That means that you will not have laundry whatsoever beyond this point. That was an amendment that they passed. They have decided that the machines are not generating enough cash flow to make money for Oakwood Harbor, and barely have enough cash flow to actually pay for the electricity and the water that they use. They're going to cut the maintenance staff by 1/3 and the budget of the maintenance staff by 1/3. Since Clay was confirmed as of today in the meeting to have left Oakwood Harbor employment, whether or not that was resignation, which is what I heard, but again, it's what I heard, or whether or not he was let go or just found a better job, I don't know. All I know is that I posted this weeks back, and everybody asked me, "Are you sure? How do you know this?" and everything else. But anyways, Clay is gone, so that reduced $1,000 per month from the maintenance. So they're going to reduce Jerry's hours to compensate for a 30% reduction across the board. This way here, everybody takes a little bit of a bite. So that's one of the things that's on the board. They're going to sell 2 of the 3 trailers that they have. One of them will be posted apparently in the office, because they're not doing things on social media and they're not sending mail. So I have to stress, if you want to know what's going on, you need to go to the office. You need to make phone calls and ask. But one of them selling for $450 and the other one for $1,000. The theory behind this is to bring in a little bit of extra cash revenue, as well as get rid of the trailers that are not being utilized. Jerry mentioned that one of those trailers keeps getting loaded up with garbage, and it's not supposed to be. So it's a measure that they're working on. And lastly, make sure your dogs are contained. Don't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and just let them run wild, because the conversation today, although it was not an amendment, the conversation today encompassed the idea that these loose dogs have been running around and injuring other dogs, and the concern of a child or an adult being bitten. And I agree with that. The reason it's a concern for you as an owner or someone who lives here full time, or even here on the weekend, is that if your dog is running loose, the sheriff has recommended they're not going to come out and play dog catcher. What they will do is, if the dog is a threat, and as anybody who lives here knows, it's about a 15-minute or longer response time, they'll come out and they'll shoot the dog. And it was recommended that if it's a threat, shoot it. So everybody agreed with that. That's a grave concern. I have 2 dogs. Mine are fully contained. They're behind a fence, and they're only out to get some exercise when we're accompanied with them. So please, please, if you value your pets, lock them up behind a gate, or have them on some kind of a leash or something where they can be watched over, and keep a very close eye on them, because who knows where they're going to take this from there. In summation, I've been talking about this for a long time, and I'm going to put it to you one more time. If the owners meeting takes place, I will be there, and it was already stressed today that even though I was told they would present it to the owners as a vote, that I should present it myself. So I will. And that is the replacement of the animal covenant with a new covenant that allows certain breeds, certain types of animals, such as chickens, goats, rabbits. And the proposal that I had given them originally has some fairly strict guidelines. So I think it's acceptable to everybody, and that was the reason I wrote it that way. But I'm also going to give the owners the option at that point to just scrap the animal covenant altogether. So it's up to you. It's up to the owners. I'm not trying to push my own agenda. I would like to have some chickens. I think it's more pertinent now than it ever was that you have some kind of an alternative food supply. And that was demonstrated again just in this ice storm. We have record heat waves supposedly being predicted for the summer. And these are all things that are going to affect the power grid, going to affect food supplies, and so on and so forth. So, think it over. And I will also, again, present the idea of having an oversight committee that has the authority to look at the receipts, to make sure that they're documented, to follow up on any complaints that the people in their section have. I do have volunteers that are already set aside. Some of them want their names exposed and some of them don't, because they were afraid of reprisal. That may change now. But we do have volunteers that would be section representatives. So what we're going to try to do is organize an oversight and steering committee that would allow you as an owner to talk to your area representative and have that information transferred to the board for approval. Now, I will take it one step further, because the board has been reluctant to work on what the residents want. So I will write it in such a way, and I'll post it so you can read it before April 15th comes around, if that's indeed the date. but I will write it in such a way that if for whatever reason they decline to vote on it when presented, then we will take it to an owner's vote ourselves. So there's some interesting things going on, and you really need to be aware of what's happening, because I, for the life of me, can't understand how it would be necessary to cut garbage, to cut amenities like the laundry room and whatnot. Since 2010 to 2020, when this board took place, Oakwood Harbor may have struggled, and there was definitely a need to go up on the assessments for day-to-day expenses. But for the life of me, I can't understand why now in 2021 we need to eliminate these amenities in order to make up for budget shortfalls. It makes no sense, especially in the light of the fact that the assessments were just raised. So again, talk with your trustees, call them, stop in the office, do whatever it takes, get involved, plan for April 15th, watch your dogs, and if you don't like what's happening, you need to open your mouth. I understand there's been a certain amount of fear of reprisal in the past. I'm hoping, I can honestly say that 3 of the board trustees that are sitting right now have been in touch with my friend and also a business associate of mine, which is Skyline Real Estate. And Hanny relayed some of the message that the board wanted to talk, and they want some changes. So I think the people that are in there are going to be a little bit more open to listening to what the owners want. But in reality, it all comes down to the same thing. If you don't have someone that's there watching over their shoulder, someone who lives here, who's representing you from your section, you don't have a voice, and we need to get our voices together. So again, that's it for today. Again, wow. So hopefully this was informative, and again, talk to your trustees, talk to them, see what's going on, see what they have to say. Have a great afternoon, and I'll keep you updated as much as I can.